Hello, everyone. My name is Jacek Spendel. I'm president of Liberty International. I would say good afternoon because I'm in Poland, but people come from all over the world here. So, yeah, it can be also morning if you are in Hawaii. It can be morning in some places in most of the United States and Americas. Basically, afternoon in Europe, where I am, and in Africa, and well, evening in Asia, right? Um, so this is wonderful to welcome all of our guests and our speakers, our who are also board members of Liberty International. I will have pleasure to introduce them in a moment, but now I would like to switch my voice with Dr. Mary Ruwart for some opening remarks.
Well, thank you, Jacek, and welcome, everyone. As you know, Liberty International has for decades been active in sharing the good news of liberty throughout the world. And today, of course, we are going to be looking towards July 4th, which in the US is a big holiday because July 4th, 1776, is when the British colonies here in North America declared their independence from Great Britain. And this document was crafted in such a way that I think most people can identify it, no matter which country you're in. And we're going to be talking about aspects of this in our panel today and sharing with you the way we feel about these ideals, which I think is pretty, in Liberty International, we truly embrace this document. And we hope that you will feel like you can too, and take the concepts therein and share it with your country, wherever you are from, and hopefully be able to apply them. It's difficult because, well, here, even in the US here, we haven't totally lived up to these ideals. And I'm sure many of you know about that. But that's our target. That's what we try to embrace. And we are delighted that our forefathers and mothers came up with some of these ideas, which were put into writing. And we hope that you will be able to use them in your country as well. So I won't say more than that right now, other than we will be, of course, discussing this and giving you an opportunity for questions, hopefully, if we don't go too long. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mary. Well, before I introduce, I want to say a few words about what we do here at Liberty International. Our mission is finding and expanding freedom in an unfree world. So we are truly global organization based in the US, but and based in these ideas that also formed the United States. This is one of the reasons we do this seminar. The original ideas that also are present in the Declaration of Independence, but we do our work all over the world, and we want liberty to be a practical matter. We don't want it to be something old concepts from the books. We want liberty to be something that anyone, doesn't matter what income, what color of skin, place in the world you live in, you can find these elements of freedom around the world and make your life freer, thus happier, right? Because at the end, we want to live happier, more successful lives. And liberty is this necessary condition. We are quite old. We were started in 1969. There were many changes during all of these decades. This is 6th decade now. We had different name. Many of you remember us as ISIL, International Society for Individual Liberty. This is still our legal name. However, we are now known as Liberty International. We are doing business as Liberty International. And this year, Again, many projects. I just want to mention one, Liberty International World Conference in Nepal this August. Please check this website, liwc26.com. I believe Alba can also type this website. We still have tickets available. And if you are from that region, from Nepal or maybe India, especially from those countries, there are still some scholarships available. So we welcome anyone. We are like these are like family gatherings. People of different age, different professions, but there's one common denominator: love for liberty. Okay, enough of self-promo of Liberty International. Please check our website. Actually, it was changed recently. It looks much better. I'm quite proud about this. liberty-intl.org. And now I'm happy to introduce our speakers for today's webinar. So these are my distinguished colleagues with whom I am serving at the board of Liberty International. I'll start with our chairwoman, a lady, Dr. Mary Ruwart, who is a research scientist, ethicist, and best-selling author of Healing Our World and other books. She's a respected advocate for individual liberty for more than 4 decades. She serves as chair of Liberty International and is widely known for her work on libertarian philosophy and effective communication. Welcome, Mary. Our secretary, James W. Lark. Jim Lark is a professor of systems and information engineering at the University of Virginia. He is also a longtime leader in the international liberty movement. James Lark served in numerous leadership roles within libertarian organizations and currently serves as secretary of the board of Liberty International, bringing decades of experience in education, organizational leadership, and public policy. Welcome, James. Antonio Saravia. Dr. Antonio Saravia is an associate professor of economics at Mercer University and the director of its Center for the Study of Economics and Liberty. Antonio is originally from Bolivia, and he specializes in political economy, economic freedom, public policy, and serves on the board of Liberty International. Antonio will be also the key teacher and mentor, actually, for our fresh new project named Phoenix from the Ashes. And the first student edition of Phoenix from the Ashes will happen this summer in Nepal, actually by the end of July. So very exciting. Lobo Tiggre. Lobo is an entrepreneur, investment analyst, and founder of Independent Speculator. He's a longtime advocate of free markets and individual liberty, combines his background in investing with decades of involvement in the liberty movement. And Lobo also serves on the board of Liberty International. And last but not least, José Luis Cordeiro, Venezuelan Spanish engineer, economist, futurist, and best-selling author, of course. Jose is expert on technological innovation, economic development, life extension, and frequent international speaker. Jose is every week somewhere else in the world speaking on longevity and freedom. He serves on the board of our organization, Liberty International, and promoting a future of greater freedom, prosperity, and human progress, of course. Welcome. I am really excited for today's discussion on founding fathers' principles on freedom, of course, and how these ideas spread or not spread, we'll see, around the world. So I will start with a topic that is around the question of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, the central concept of the Declaration of Independence. So the Declaration speaks of unalienable rights. Do you think that framing still holds moral and political force outside of the United States? Why or maybe why not? Can we start with Mary, perhaps?
Sure. Well, although most people aren't familiar with the word, what it really means is that these rights cannot be taken away from us, that, we're born with them. They're part of our makeup, if you will. And, we see this in a variety of ways. For example, if people are imprisoned or, otherwise enslaved, it really detracts, obviously, from their prosperity, their liberty, their happiness. And this really kind of destroys the human spirit. So, this is not something that is trivial. It's an important bit of knowledge that we have about our human, our human being, basically. And so, when we have tyrannical oppression, then we know that somebody's trying to take away that right, but they can't. It's inborn. It's part of our biology, if you will. Speaking as a biologist, so that's what it means, I think, to me, and really to the people who wrote the Declaration of Independence.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone would like to add anything? Maybe Professor Lark?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all of those who have joined with us. We very much appreciate your being here. I think the notion of inalienable or unalienable rights still has great motive force throughout the world. One of the biggest problems, though, that we face is that people have, in many cases, a very bad notion of what rights are, that they think of rights, so-called positive rights, that they have a right to food, they have a right to health care. Essentially, they're saying that they have a right to, they have claims on the life, liberty, and property, the labor of other people. And I think one of the biggest problems that we in the liberty movement face is to try to help people understand what we believe are real rights as opposed to faux rights, that you don't have a claim on other people's life, liberty, and property. You have claims against people imposing on you. And I think that that's a very important thing that we need to, this is something that needs to be much more well understood.
I'd like to jump in, if I may, Jacek.
Of course, definitely, Labo.
I want to zoom in on something Mary brought up, and I think it's actually more timely than ever. This word, inalienable or unalienable, I know they debated about that 250 years ago. But what Mary's saying is you can put the person in jail, but that doesn't undo their right. Like, you cannot separate the right. You can infringe on their freedom, in fact, but that doesn't change their basic human right. And that hasn't changed. This is not something that goes out of style, or it doesn't change with some new political or economic theory. That is in our nature as human beings. And so if you put someone in prison, or if you infringe on their rights, their natural rights, then you are in the wrong. What you're doing is unjust, and it is wrong, even if you get away with it, even if it's under color of law. There have been unethical laws in the past. That's not a new thing. But I think it's really important to understand that this, unalienable, inalienable, it doesn't go away. And whether you want to attribute that to God or to nature, man's nature in the universe that we live in, whatever, it is part of our being. And no government, not even a supermajority of votes, nobody can take that away from you, even if they put you in jail.
Exactly. So I want to now bring John Locke a little bit, and this is important because the Declaration of Independence was very much influenced with John Locke's writing, especially second treatise of government. So the Declaration famously references life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but that actually that phrase replaced property from John Locke's original triad, life, liberty, property. And in chapter 2 of the second treatise of civil government, John Locke writes, quote, being all equal and independent, no one ought to harm another in his life, health, liberty, or possessions. End of quote. In chapter 5, specifically about property, John Locke writes, though the earth and all inferior creatures be common to all men, yet every man has a property in his own person. This nobody has any right to but himself. The labor of his body and the work of his hands, we may say, are properly his, end of quote. So, as we know, property rights are also basis of economic freedom. Still, this notion is challenged, to say the least, in many parts of the world. What do you think? What is the most important argument for property rights that crosses cultural boundaries? I don't know who would like to start now.
I can say something about it.
Antonio or Jose, you both are originally from Latin American countries where the notion of property rights was not same as in the vision of John Locke.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the first thing I would say, of course, this is very Lockean, right? So John Locke had a tremendous influence in the Declaration of Independence, even though I think he died 70 some years before the Declaration of Independence was written. Life, liberty, and property as these natural rights and unalienable rights that nobody can take away from us, as Lobo was saying. Now we got to understand that in 18th century America, owning property gave you it was closely related to being independent and to have judgment, right? So if you own a house or if you own a business, you were seen as an independent person that could contribute to the discussion of public affairs. So it was very important. Property became a very central piece of the Declaration of Independence. Of course, the nature, right? So the Declaration of Independence, we want to be independent. So we cannot be independent if the British government is going to have any rights over our property. And that's where the whole thing about taxation without representation came from, and so on and so forth. So it was very a central piece. To be able to be independent, we need to be able to control our property. The government cannot take it away. That's going to make us independent. Now, that has tremendous impact, of course, after the Declaration of Independence for the entire humanity, because if we don't control our property, if we're not able to possess property, then what good does it do to be free, right? So how can we be free if we cannot own stuff, right? To protect our families, to protect ourselves, etc. So property gives us incentives to work. If I'm able to control my property, I have incentives to work, to prosper, to flourish, because I'm going to see the fruits of my effort, right? Without property, I don't have that. Therefore, I don't have freedom. And I'm going to conclude with this, though. Even in the United States today and in many countries of the world, is it true that we have 100% property for example, if I have a house, right? Yeah, I own the house. Well, wait a second. You pay a lot of taxes for it, right? So, Robert Nozick's The Tale of a Slave, right? At what point does this become something other than the tale of a slave? I think that's something to think about it, but I'll stop here.
Yes, this was good one, Antonio. You're right. Like it's ours, but yet we need to pay every month, every year, dues to some master who is supposed to give us protection, right? Okay, we talked about life, liberty, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And this concept that come from John Locke. What do you think are the biggest threats for life and liberty in today's world? Who would like to speak? This is quite general, quite wide topic, but I thought we should not only talk about concepts per se, that's important, but also like how these concepts apply in today's world. I have in mind, for example, geopolitical. Yes, Jose?
Yeah, let me give my thought. First of all, this is a week of celebrations because not only will it be July the 4th for the USA, but we just had July the 1st, which is Canada Day. And then we have July the 5th, which is the Independence Day of Venezuela. In 1811, Simon Bolivar and other Venezuelan South Americans declared the independence of Venezuela. So we had a lot of celebrations. And today, July the 2nd, Spain is playing in the World Cup. So we have to finish on time because Spain will probably beat Austria today. And that was just in terms of general concepts. When we talk about rights, I think that we try to talk right to freedom, property, pursuit of happiness, and life. But I like to say life is the major right, because if we don't have life, forget about property, forget about liberty, forget about happiness. Okay, so I think the right to life is fundamental, is the basic right. And as Antonio was saying, because, or Lobo said, you might be imprisoned, but you still have that right to be free. But that is if you are alive. If you are dead, then forget about all of that. And I just want to take it into practice with my own personal life. My family is from Spain, and they left Spain when Spain was a dictatorship. It was a poor fascist dictatorship. As you probably know, after World War II, Spain remained as a fascist dictator under Francisco Franco. And it was very poor, isolated from the world. And so my parents left and went to the freest and most democratic country in South America at the time, which was Venezuela. So I was born in Venezuela when Venezuela was free and when Venezuela was democratic. And there was property rights, pursuit of happiness, all of those beautiful things. Now, in my lifetime, Venezuela has become a horribly poor country and very close to a dictatorship. We don't know the status now, really, but coming out of a dictatorship, hopefully. And Spain, more or less, became very democratic and relatively prosperous European country. So things can change fast, because in my life, it has happened twice. From a rich country becoming poor, Venezuela, and a poor country becoming rich and free, Spain. So these are things we can see in our lifetime. But then, of course, I totally support freedom and life, longevity. This is fundamental, because without life, forget about freedom.
And
Yes, definitely.
I want to
Mary?
jump in, if you would, bring some
okay.
thoughts together here. I have as a U.S. Passport bearer, the erosion of rule of law in the United States to me is greatly concerning. And the U.S. being still a global superpower and a military superpower, all this stuff, I think it's of concern to all. I'm answering your question about threats. Sorry to be the gloom and doom here, but I think all freedom-loving persons should be concerned about the erosion of rule of law. Even if one is a Republican in the United States, rule of law should come first, not rule of man. The other thing, though, and this goes more international, and I think something everybody should be thinking about, is CBDCs. And we talked about property and how free can you be if you can't control your property. Well, if the government can program your money and say, nope, you can't buy more meat this week, you've eaten more red meat than you're supposed to, or that we approve of, and turn your money off for meat, or no, right, or whatever it is, that level of control is something that George Orwell's Big Brother could only have dreamed of in that nightmare. And the powers that be are working on that in our world today. So we've got more positive things to say, but you asked about threats. And I think this, for anybody internationally who's concerned about liberty, this is something to focus your efforts on.
And we haven't said this directly, but we've kind of tiptoed around it. Our most important property is our body. I mean, that's kind of what Jose was referring to, and what you're referring to too, because restrictions on what we can buy at the grocery store are going to influence our body. So, these are threats.
Yeah, there are many. I also think of war as a threat, obviously, And sometimes I have this reflection that, okay, I fight against regulation, against taxes, all of this bad stuff that I don't believe in, because I believe in free human, and people can exchange value, and we don't need these, masters to tell us how we should do it, and in what doses, and so on and so forth. But sometimes I have this reflection, like, it will not matter as that much if bombs will be dropping on us, right? To have this essential safety. I know this word is used by very much, even too much, by the people on the other side of the political spectrum or ideological spectrum. But this essential safety that we can plan for tomorrow, and we can think of the future of our property, our families, and so on and so forth. This is huge, right? And I'm afraid we don't live in a safer world than we did live 5 or 10 years ago.
Well, war is the health of the state, right? That's a truism most of us would accept. And also, we have very recent example. Just look at what happens in Ukraine. Let's take Ukraine's side even. They're completely unjustly invaded by Russia. The Russians are bad. The Ukrainians are good. What does Zelensky do? Institute conscription. Right? The very first thing that happens when the war breaks out is freedom goes out the window. Oh no, existential risk. Your rights, forget that. We've got a war to fight. So war is absolutely an extreme risk to anybody.
Yes, but even when there's not yet war, but there's this tense situation, like right now, United States versus China, or the bloc of
national
authoritarian
security
countries, and AI companies that develop AI, the most modern AI languages, they are not available to people that these companies would like them to make available for, because U.S. government says it's a threat to national security. We need to take care of the people who will use it because they can use it for bad reasons, etc., etc. It's there's some connection with the CBDC. I see a lot of threats here, but I don't want to be totally pessimistic. We are rather optimistic. We at Liberty International, we try to look for this, as I say, elements of freedom in the world. These elements still exist. They are places where actually freedom flourishes. The global exchange, the positive aspects of globalization, basically, also are definitely bringing our human freedom experience up. So the question I have right now is, okay, we talk about threats, but what are the hopes that we see for liberty, for humanity in today's world? And who wants to start? Mary, yes.
Actually, I'm very optimistic too, because I think ultimately, even the people who think they profit by money, maybe money and power over other human beings, pay a price for that, I think. And that is that, and I've actually talked to a person or two in that realm, and noticed they weren't very happy people, in spite of the fact they had power and money, and that was their goal. So I asked them, what would you need to be happy? And their answer, it took me a while to really understand their answer, but what they said was, well, I don't feel connected to other people, and I think I would need to have to feel connected to humankind if I wanted to be happy. And of course, they've separated themselves from other people by using aggression as their means. So they can't jump that barrier, because when you aggress against others, that's what creates a separation. Whereas when you have goodwill towards all, it's easy to embrace your fellow person, or man, woman, whatever. And anyhow, I think that's a key that we haven't really focused on, because if that's the case, then since we all go after, the things that make us happy, it's in our genes, so to speak. I think eventually, if we don't blow ourselves up first, we will have a freer world, because there'll be a recognition that freedom not only gives you that prosperity that everyone wants, not only gives you peace, but it gives you a connection to others and helps you, I think, gain your own happiness that way, rather than, I guess, I was going to say shooting it in the foot because that's how I think of it. But that, I don't know about that analogy. I wish there was a better one. Anyhow, that's the one I've got currently. So I just pass that on, the thought that maybe people will wake up because of their own selfish best interest. And if happiness is what they want, I don't think you can do it and aggress against others for any length of time.
Thank you, Mary. Jose?
Yeah, I'm also concerned about a few things like Lobo was mentioning about the USA, because supposedly the USA is the Statue of Liberty, the torch of freedom in the world. And we have many things to be concerned about right now, including me as a Venezuelan, that Donald Trump is supporting the dictator, or the second dictator of Venezuela. I mean, this is incredible, especially because the person who won the election last year in 2025 in Venezuela even got the Nobel Prize. And Trump is not considering her, Maria Corina Machado, and her team, who won the election, versus the dictator followers from Nicolas Maduro, who is Delcy Rodriguez. To me, this is incredible, incredible. Of course, we support what Trump did, because no one but Trump could have gotten the dictator of Venezuela out. So we support that completely. But this is like Alibaba and the 40 thieves. Trump took out Alibaba, but he left the 40 thieves in Venezuela. So that's not good enough. You know, if you get Alibaba, you also get to get rid of some of the thieves. And that he's now dealing with the thieves is not good for the USA either. So I am concerned as well. And liberty goes up and down sometimes in history, as we know, as I mentioned, in Venezuela when it was free and wealthy and democratic, or in Spain now, or even the USA had also a civil war. You know, the USA had a horrible war, the Civil War. So there were bad times in the USA, like there might be now. So yeah, liberty goes up and down, and we have to keep on fighting continuously. This is an eternal fight, eternal. And that is why I like immortality, because I want to be fighting eternally for liberty. And I love the comment that Mary Ruwart made. Our most important property is our body. It cannot be said better than that. And by the way, another activity of Liberty International that has not been mentioned yet, after our Liberty International World Conference in Nepal, and I hope many of you go, there will be fantastic activities and freedom fighters in Nepal. Then we have the fundraising event in Austin, Texas. And the focus is longevity and freedom. So Mary, why don't you talk about that link, longevity and freedom?
And in the context of hope for freedom.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Mary, you want to talk about this now or maybe later?
I can.
Okay,
Yes.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so this November 7th event is actually kind of a reward for our donors, but we are inviting anyone who wants to attend to become a donor. And if you want to know more about how to do that, the best way to do it is to sign up for our newsletter, because we actually have some other events coming too. We have a journal that we're putting out, and the first issue is going to be on longevity. And we have some of the top-notch people both coming to the November 7th event and to our journal. So if you sign up for our newsletter, which you can do at liberty-intl.org/contact, I'll put that in the chat, scroll to the bottom and sign up for our newsletter, because all the details are going to be in there. And you want to keep on top of that, because believe it or not, age reversal studies are happening in humans next year. this is just around the corner, and the animal work looks wonderful. I really expect the human studies to follow. So please join us for all of this wonderful longevity type things. And remember, your most important property is your body, and you want to take care of it and make sure it's healthy and lasts for a long time.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have great speakers and very tasty lunch. It's a beautiful place in central Austin. Tickets which are also donation, as Mary said. If you buy it, that means you become a donor. You are welcome. We don't expect more. Tickets will be only $75. So for such a great lineup of speakers and treatment, I think this is not too much. It's good value in my opinion. Okay, now coming back to late 18th century and the era when the United States were formed. I want to ask you,
Jacek,
yes,
sorry to interrupt, but if we're going to move on from the hope, can I say a couple of things that make me hopeful today?
Yes, please do, Lobo.
Because we did have some negative thoughts, and I really don't want to sound like the rain on the parade. This may sound a little bit controversial, but bear with me. I am not pro-Iranian regime. I think the IRGC is a cancer on the world that should be excised. But think about what just happened. The United States, the greatest military superpower in the world, absolutely dumps on this little poor country. And those people are still standing. So I'm not in favor of those people, but I'm saying, look at the lesson. I mean, in the Afghans, they stood up to the Soviets and the US later, right? So if you get to thinking, oh, the world is terrible, Big Brother is going to win, woe is me, there's nothing we can do. Just think about it. Intransigent people who cling to their beliefs, they stood up to the greatest military power. And it actually strikes me that there's a parallel here. It's not that the United States ran out of bombs. It's that the budget ran over. And so the war wound down, right? The permission slip wound down. And it's bureaucracy versus ideology. In a way, that's what happened 250 years ago. It's not that the British couldn't have continued pounding the colonies. It's not that they ran out of ships and cannons. It's that they had other things to do with, and it wasn't worth it to them. And they let us go. So I think this bridges several ideas that we're talking about. You know, these ideas of inalienable rights, of freedom, pursuit of happiness and property. These are not old things that were relevant 250 years ago. They still happen now. And if in our today's world, with all the technology around us, a relatively small group of intransigent people can stand up to the world's greatest superpower, at least strategically extract concessions, I think there is some hope for that. At least, you know, that Big Brother doesn't necessarily win all by just might makes right. And I wish it wasn't the Iranians, you know, and maybe just to pivot here. So what else is there? If it's not the Iranians, well, maybe Argentina becomes the next burning torch. I wish Javier would get a grip on the corruption surrounding him, because that besmirches what he's trying to do. And it's really unfortunate, but let's set that aside for the moment. It's just astounding to have not just a libertarian, but an anarcho-capitalist elected as, you know, the head of state of a significant world country. And if it was just that, you know, that alone would be significant and hopeful. But it's not just that. We've got a sort of right turn spreading through South America. And I'm not endorsing everybody that's won elections recently, but it's significant that Fujimori can win in Peru. It's significant what just happened in Colombia. And this is places where if you had asked me 5 or 10 years ago, I would say the left has just won the war of ideas here. There's just no way that, you know, work hard and you can get ahead is going to compete against free tortillas or free healthcare or free whatever the socialists are promising. And in fact, that pessimism was wrong. So I'm not trying to say any of you know, who is pure in today's political stage. I'm not trying to defend any one person as the angel of liberty out there. I'm trying to say that not just ancient history but like actual world history today, what's happening today is giving us important lessons about the limits of autocratic power, the limits of military power, and the power of ideas, the power of those ideals that we support here at Liberty International.
And that's what makes our mission at Liberty International so important. I mean, if the United States should go down and become a socialist country or a dictatorship, which I pray doesn't happen, but it's a possibility, we need other countries to pick up the banner of freedom. And that's what we're trying to do at Liberty International, is educating people in all different countries, all different continents, what freedom really is, and how to implement it, how to be practical about it. And that's, that's why I'm really glad you're all here today. And I hope that you'll continue to work with us on this important mission. And I've always thought that maybe some developing country would say, we're tired of being poor. And the ideas are out there on the internet for anyone to pick up now. It's not a secret anymore what's that freedom causes prosperity. And that's exactly what's happening in Argentina. I'm so thrilled. But again, we can't count on one or two countries. We really need to help every country have the knowledge of freedom, because that way the torch will always burn.
Right. But can I say something here? I think that the
Okay, I
United
hope you
States.
hear me. I may have some connection. Oh, you do.
Can you hear
Wonderful.
me?
Before I go to the next question, I will make a little announcement, which I should do maybe earlier. So to all our participants, to people who are listening to this webinar, you are not just welcome, but also encouraged to type your questions. There's a special box somewhere in Zoom where you can type your questions, and in just about 15 minutes, we will start reading your questions to specific participants of this discussion, speakers. So make sure that you also add information to which speaker is the question designated. So yeah, I definitely encourage for questions. It's not only me to ask them, but I will still take this privilege and continue for a while. I want to talk about founding fathers a bit. So there are more well-known and less known founding fathers, people who took part in the convention in Philadelphia, who framed the United States and the most important document like the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. I want to ask now, which founding father or idea do you think is most underappreciated today, and why does it still matter? Maybe not the easiest question, but I'm sure there are some favorite founding fathers you have, and not necessarily the most popular ones. Who would like to start? I feel that Mr. Secretary.
Well, Mr. President,
Professor
thank you.
Lark.
I guess I'm somewhat biased being a Virginian, but I think George Mason's name is not nearly as well known as it should be. Of course, many people, perhaps many of those who are participating in this forum, know of George Mason University. George Mason was a prominent politician in the Commonwealth of Virginia, who his principal accomplishment, I think most people would recognize, is the Declaration of Rights of Virginia, which was in many ways a forerunner of the Declaration of Independence and provided a lot of if you will, substance for the Constitution and the subsequent Bill of Rights. And interestingly enough, Mr. Mason, who had been a supporter of the Constitution, basically coming up with the Constitution in the aftermath of the Articles of Confederation, but he ultimately became an anti-federalist because he thought the U.S. Constitution allowed too much scope for increasing federal power. I think he was quite prescient in his objections.
Thank you, Professor Lark. I felt that George Mason will be mentioned. Mary?
Yeah, I think Benjamin Rush was one of the founding fathers whose information did not make it into our Constitution. He said that we needed to have an amendment to the Constitution that allowed freedom of health, and health decisions. That did not happen. And so today, our biggest industry in the United States government is medical. And, we're all suffering from the high prices that result, and actually the loss of innovation. In fact, just the FDA, there's enough data out there, if you put it together, to show that we've lost at least 5 years of our lives because of the FDA, and probably closer to 10. And I say that because 5 years first for the slowing down the development of life-saving drugs, and another 5 years for outlawing prevention. And that's unconscionable. And, we were talking earlier how your body is your most important property. Well, if you can't protect your body, you're really limited in everything else. And that's basically what Benjamin Rush predicted would happen. And it has.
I would like to jump in there because, Mary, again, I agree with you. And talking about health and life expectancy, Spain is the most longevous country in the European Union, and Madrid is the most longevous city in the European Union, 86 years, 0.1. New York is, I don't know, Lobo, do you know life expectancy in New York, or you, Mary? It's probably 77, 76 years, like almost 10 years less than in Madrid. So even when the government takes over health and it doesn't do it well, it's a disaster. But going to my favorite father, I love Benjamin Franklin because he was also a scientist, a self-made scientist. And because I'm an engineer, I like to try science and engineering things. And he was really fantastic scientist. He was a creator, an innovator, besides, of course, being pretty much liberty-minded. So I love Benjamin Franklin. And I like his quote, there are only two things certain in life, death and taxes. And I disagree with them both. I don't like taxes, and I like death even less.
That's how it should be. Teaching is teaching liberty, basically. Education is at the core of the mission of Liberty International. That's actually what big percent of our projects are educational. Not only, of course, we have also other types of projects, but since we talk about education and Declaration of Independence of the United States, and we talk obviously about liberty, life, liberty, property, pursuit of happiness, these concepts. I want to ask those of you who are teaching, and actually most of the board members are teaching. So how do you make the case for freedom compelling to people who have grown up in environments where freedom has never default? So maybe I will dedicate this question in the first course, at least, to Antonio and Jose. As Antonio is originally from Bolivia, Jose is originally from Venezuela. I'm sure many times they encountered audience that was not very knowledgeable about concept of individual liberty. So maybe we start with Antonio.
Yeah, but if you allow me, I wanted to say something about the discussion before.
Okay.
I really echo what Lobo was saying about the need to remain vigilant of freedom in the United States and the rule of law as opposed to the rule of man. And I think that makes a lot of sense. But, everything is relative too. And I'm not a Trumpist by no means, but we need to recognize that the change of administration and President Trump becoming the president again have brought a lot of important advancements in terms of freedom as well. we were becoming prey of the dictatorship of political correctness in the United States. And that's something that has stopped almost on its tracks here in the country. And I think that's important. I think we need to recognize that. Number two, all of the wave to the right, if you will, in Latin America, I don't think it could have happened without Trump in power. Removing Maduro was a very important signal, although he left the 40 thieves, as Jose mentions. Still, those 40 thieves now are behaving better. And it sent a powerful signal to the rest of Latin America. And I think that what we're seeing in Colombia and Peru, in Bolivia, it would have been much, much more difficult to happen without Trump killing the leader of Tren de Aragua, uh, famous cartel and criminal organization, was also very important. So everything is relative, and of course there are lights and shadows everywhere, but we not need to think about that. Okay, to your question, Jacek, I don't think you have to do anything extraordinary to teach freedom in countries where freedom is not the norm, because people there realize, listen, we want freedom. We are we're desperate for freedom. We think that if we are allowed to do
So
this
it's
and that,
easier.
progress. Right. I mean, it's the other way around. They can teach us more about the need and the importance of freedom. I've seen that in Bolivia, in Latin America, in different parts of the world. I believe, like, if we go to Cuba, for example, people will tell us so much about the need for freedom, and how if they were allowed just a little bit of tiny freedom, like I can establish a little business, then I can do this and I can do that, and I can sell this and I can sell that, and I can save money, and I can invest in this. They have it all figured out in their heads if they only had the ability to do certain things. You point at empirical evidence, and it's overwhelming how economic freedom has generated prosperity and growth everywhere. The only ones that you have a hard time convincing are always the same. In Latin America, everywhere in the world, in the United States, are these intellectuals, right? The intellectuals on the left that think that, collective solutions or ideas have a place, have a role. Those are the guys that we need to keep convincing. But people, normal people, middle class, poor people on the streets, they understand this better than anybody.
Antonio, can
What
we
I
say
would
that?
like,
Can we paraphrase this saying about good times and strong people? Like bad times create strong people, then strong people create good times, and and
Yeah,
then weak people come. Can we say that the socialist regimes create freedom-loving people, and then they take over and they create good times, and then the socialist people are born and they destroy the country, and the
I think
cycle
there is
goes.
something to that cycle. Yes.
Okay, that's a pity, at least to some degree. Jose, I interrupted you.
yeah. And then we want to listen to Jim because he has also a lot of experience with young people in the USA. But in my case, when I was growing up in South America, I never ever heard about Hayek or Friedman or
Salma Hayek, you heard about
Rothbard.
Salma Hayek, maybe?
No, no, no. That was much later than my time as a student. Also, I didn't even hear about Adam Smith. You know, it was all Keynesian and communist, Karl Marx, and then the least bad was Keynes, John Maynard Keynes. So economics was controlled by this group of intellectuals, as Antonio described, who are very socialist minded. So many young people grow up with those ideas, even though when they see reality, reality is different. But I also tell you something I clearly remember, which I hate now. You know, young people in Latin America, we loved Che Guevara because Che Guevara was a symbol of the tiny David against the huge Goliath. Um, che Guevara meaning Cuba, and the Goliath, the USA. So this is something that young people, idealistic people normally have in mind. And this is what we grew up in Latin America, not just in Venezuela. So it takes time to learn how reality works. As I think Winston Churchill said something like this, that if you are 20 and if you are not kind of a socialist, then you have no heart. But if you are 40 and if you are still socialist, it's because what you don't have is a brain.
Yes. So maybe I mean I know that Professor Lark also goes often to Students for Liberty conferences, talks to young people a lot outside of US. Lobo, I know, goes every year to Lithuania for cycle camp, meets Lithuanians, Belarusians, actually many Belarusians, and they still live in an quasi-totalitarian country, quite horrible under Lukashenko. So I would love to hear from you as well.
Well, in
Yes.
terms of helping people understand the ideas of liberty, I think first of all, advocates for liberty have to have two characteristics. One is we must be people of surpassing integrity. We must apply the same withering scrutiny to our own ideas that we apply to the ideas of those with whom we think we disagree. And we need to be people who listen to those with whom we're dealing. We need to understand what it is that they want to understand about liberty. We need to understand what they think about the problems of a truly liberal society. And again, we have to hold ourselves to the highest standards of integrity. We also have to treat people with courtesy. Most people are pretty decent. They actually will, if you treat them the right way, if you explain these ideas with integrity, with respect, they'll usually listen to you. They may not agree with you, but they'll usually listen. The biggest problems, I think, in many cases are that many people, it's not that they disagree with the truly libertarian principles. What they disagree with are these very bad caricatures of our principles. They're prisoners in many cases of bad history and bad economics. And if I didn't know if I didn't know something about economics and history, I might be more socialistically inclined. As I learned some economics, as I learned my history, I realized that these things, these facile quote solutions, don't solve anything. In many cases, it makes things much worse. So I think in many cases, if we can just clear away the misconceptions about a truly libertarian society and those people who embrace those ideas, I think we will go to a much greater degree toward a truly free, responsible society.
Thank you, Jim. Lobo, would you like to add something?
Yeah.
Especially in the... Mhm.
Real quick, teaching in Eastern Europe, I love it because I've been doing it for a while, and when I first started doing it, the students, the college students, they came out of the Soviet system, and they knew that didn't work, and they'd been taught that capitalism was evil. So, they didn't come at with a preconceived notion. They just wanted to know, what do I do? How do I get ahead in the world? And so not blank canvas, but truly an open-minded discussion. And that was fantastic. I fell in love with Eastern Europe for that reason. I think that very pragmatically oriented people who just wanted to get ahead, and that made it easy to have an honest conversation. But what Dr. Lark is saying is just so key. Like, I would put it more colorfully, but in mixed company here, let me just say, don't be a jerk. Like, you're not going to convince anybody by proving that they're wrong and coming on like, here's why you're wrong and why I'm right and blah, blah, that just doesn't work. Everybody loves Mary. If we could all be Mary, I think we'd have a freer world. And that's an example to emulate. And okay, maybe we're all not as beautiful and Mary, and not everybody wants Lobo hugs the way everybody wants Mary hugs. But the idea is, honey and sugar works better than vinegar and vim. And sorry, but just amongst us libertarians, a lot of us just have this, and maybe understandably, because we've been put down, we've been shot down for so long. We're angry, we're rebellious, but you don't win people over with anger.
Well, it's important. If I may interrupt, it's important to realize there are a lot of there are people of good heart, good mind, who have real questions about how would a truly free, responsible society work. Because the vast majority of humanity have not seen such a society. And it's not fair of us to assume that people will immediately understand our ideas. It's our responsibility to explain these things with courtesy, with respect. I think we can do it. I think that by far our arguments are the stronger. The historical evidence is the stronger. The practical implications of societies, liberal societies, libertarian societies, are wealthier societies by any reasonable standard. And I think if we get a fair playing field where our ideas are discussed and compared fairly, liberty will be the preferential option.
I agree. And let me just add one more thing. I think right now, this is a particularly important time for these ideas. If you look at the election in Colorado, not to be US centric, but that follows Mandami, which follows AOC. Like that is an act of rebellion. And Trump himself on the other side of the political spectrum, that's an act of rebellion. And we're seeing, outsiders, we're seeing a feeling of let's throw the bombs out. And that's coming from the left and the right. Young people, I think, by and large, are really tired of Boomers Plus and all the ideas that have gone before. And I think this presents an opportunity for libertarians. Like if you're not a dyed-in-the-wool hardcore socialist communist, but you lean left because you grew up and that's the culture you're in, but you're open-minded, or let's say you're kind of right-wing, but you don't want to be cold-hearted, you care about the people, whatever. I think there's an opportunity for the libertarians, which are neither wing, right? The famous world's smallest political quiz and so on, wings are for birds. I think there's an opportunity now. I think there's an appetite now. And if you can be reasonable and polite, as Dr. Lark says, and, persuasive, passionate, yes, but respectful and open and have these conversations, I think if the iron is not white hot, it's at least red hot, because there is clearly an appetite, not just in the US, but around the world, to have a new conversation. Because what happened to the 20th century just didn't work for so many people. And they're looking for answers. So this goes to my Eastern European thing, like people who actually want a new solution. That is the perfect time to talk to them about ideas.
Thank you, Lobo. I want to now switch to our audience and the questions from the audience. So I'll start with Iga Ronald. He's from Liberty Sparks, a think tank from Uganda in Africa. Iga asks, what should be done to end dictatorship, especially in Africa and more in developing countries? I guess it's for anyone who wants to pick this question.
Can you repeat it again one more time?
Yeah, Iga is asking, what should be done to end dictatorship, especially in Africa and more in developing countries? And in other developing countries, I guess.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think it's a process, right? I mean, one can be tempted to say, oh, let's ask Trump to go and send some troops there and get rid of that dictator. But if you don't work with the foundations of that society, of what happened there that produced that type of system, then the thieves are going to come back when Trump leaves or when the United States leaves. I don't think that's the long-term solution. The long-term solution, I think it has to do with the cultural battle and again, the education and kids and young people understanding that if we have a liberal democracy, we have more chances to produce economic freedom, and eventually, that generates prosperity that nobody wants to give up. And when you have a country where prosperity happens and nobody wants to give it up, then there is no chance for dictators to come in and this is what I'm going to do. No. We're prospering, we're growing, and nobody wants to give that up. I think that solidifies then a democracy. But it's a long process, case by case. Just removing the dictator probably doesn't really work.
Yeah, you don't want to cut off the head of the Hydra because you just get another one or two. It can be worse. Out with the old bus, in with the new bus. So the military solution is not the answer here. If you haven't changed the hearts of the people, then a decapitation doesn't work. We've just seen that in spades, haven't we? Haven't we? Let me throw another idea out here. This, going to my speech in Argentina, which Liberty International has archived. There's another path here, and that's sort of the Elon Musk path. Now, I'm not saying that Elon is a saint either, and everything he does is great, but money is power, and he clearly used that power to influence the U.S. elections. So if you don't want to wait for the ideas of liberty to eventually spread across the generations for the future, one way to maybe accelerate that process is to seek wealth ethically and use that power ethically to push the social conversation forward and to fund the good ideas and fund the NGOs that can oppose Oxfam or whatever on the other side and help move the battle of ideas forward. Battles need funding, and we can help with that.
And also sometimes you can form parallel paths to do the same thing. Like one thing that we recognized in India through, our network there was that a lot of the rural areas didn't have property rights, but they could get them for their farm or whatever they were doing if they went through a fairly arduous process of getting the community together. Everybody got to put their 2 cents in as to what their boundaries were. Basically, they were all what we would call squatters. But if they could agree on that, then they could register all of their claims with the authorities, and then they owned the property to the extent that you can own it in that country. Because we talked about sometimes having to pay taxes, but now they had something where they could use it as collateral for a loan for their business, or they could sell it. Because what would happen before they actually had firmed up their property rights was they couldn't really advertise, okay, I want to sell my property for so much, we would do in the States, for example, because they didn't have the right to that property because the government claimed anything that wasn't registered. So that's one kind of workaround. One workaround we're seeing here in the United States, mostly courtesy of the COVID crisis and the big mess up there, is that there have been a number of doctors who have decided that, hey, we don't want to do the types of things that are being done in traditional medicine. We are going to start really focusing on prevention and nutrition and repurposed drugs. And this is becoming quite popular, whereas before we did not have as big a component of that. So there are parallel things that you can do in a quote free economy that parallel what's happening in the government but work so much better. Another example is some of these doctors that I was talking about, they charge the customers, they don't take insurance because insurance in this country is you got to go through a lot sometimes, and it's expensive in one way, but in another way, you get so much better care, and you don't have to buy the insurance. So, and there's a number of different workarounds that people in the U.S. are using instead of insurance. There's co-ops and things of this nature where people make a commitment to take care of each other in a larger community. So there are workarounds, and sometimes those can be very powerful because, especially with the property rights in India, it changes the whole system and takes away the government control in an area, or at least gives options. So that's another way to go about it.
Thank you. We have an interesting question from Pablo Echegaray from Uruguay. Don't you all think that many people live in their feelings on reality and not seeing reality? Maybe sometimes we have to act as Milei does.
Well, Mary is the teacher of the emotional intelligence course.
Mental freedom.
Yes, we're kind of controlled by things we pick up And actually, most of the panelists referred to that. So, but I think maybe something else is going on here. I think he's maybe saying something else. What was the question again, Jacek?
Don't you all think that many people live in their feelings on reality? So they kind of like live in their feelings instead of
Yes, I think
touching reality.
yes.
And they don't see reality. Maybe sometimes we have to act as Milei does. So I guess like be more decisive and
Cut
Yeah.
down the illusion with the chainsaw.
yeah. Like,
I think it depends on the situation, obviously, but yes, I think people want to believe certain things. I think they want to believe that they can have a society where everyone is taken care of, and everyone has about the same amount of money and property and things like this. They want to believe that that world is possible, and I kind of understand that, because there was a time when I was enticed by those ideas, but the reality is that just because of the way we're structured biologically and how our brain works, it just doesn't work that way. So anyhow, that's my 2 cents on that.
thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Yes, as both a systems engineer and someone who fancies himself something of an economist, I think it helps to understand that many people have this notion that there are unambiguous solutions to many of the hard problems that we face in the human condition. And as Thomas Sowell points out very nicely, in the vast majority of situations of the human condition, we don't have solutions, we have trade-offs. And unfortunately, until people realize that their proposed solutions in many cases have trade-offs that are not at all good trade-offs, we're going to have some difficulty helping people move in a direction. And it also is required, and I think perhaps this is something that motivates the questioner's question, is in many cases, there's evidence that they really don't want to make proper comparisons, that they prefer to have their biases. I think we all have our logical priors. And for our logical priors, it takes a great deal of evidence to overturn those, to tell us to reject them. But people of integrity have to do that. And I think that one thing we can do is to try to raise the quality of the discussion, to say, look, I'm perfectly willing to listen to what you have to say. Let's see if we can have a proper discussion. Let's see if we can understand what the good and the bad of your proposed solutions are. And again, if we treat people with courtesy and with integrity, they may not come around to agree with us, but they perhaps it will at least have a better understanding of what the real issues are.
But I think
Yes,
if I could jump in here, Jessica, for just 1 second, I think what he's trying to say, the person that asked this question, is that a lot of people have these feelings that a society or a country is a family. And if we don't take care of each other in a collective way, right, we are perceived as selfish, egoistic, and only thinking about ourselves, and therefore that makes us bad individuals. So there is this perception, right, that we should behave as a family. And one of the things that I do with students or stuff when that question comes about is to say, well, it's actually the opposite. When you work for yourself and you take care of your family, and you take care of your needs, you are going to find that one of those needs in you is going to be to help others that don't have this or don't have that. And that help is going to be voluntary, not mandated by a collective organization. And therefore, you're going to feel even better about doing that than when you have the collective society trying to take care of everybody, right? So when they start seeing that and say, "Oh, it's going to be me out of the kindness of my heart that is going to help if I want to, if I can, and I'm going to feel even better." Yeah, that's the way you go to heaven, right? Not when a dictator tells you this is what you need to do. It's something like that. People refer to feelings when they think, "Oh, we should feel like a family."
yes. And I want to add to what Professor Lark mentioned before. Very often we think that talking to our adversaries. Maybe it doesn't make sense. It's so hard to win, to change their mind, because they are truly believers in socialism or in collectivism in a broader sense. But if these are like public discussions, debates, and there are people who listen, it's the ones who listen that matter the most. Maybe you will not change the diehard communist or socialist or nationalist, collectivist also happen to be on the right. But there's this, silent majority. They are watching, they are listening, and to have compelling arguments and to be, as Professor Lark mentioned, to be the best human possible, and using good arguments and be polite and so on and so forth. That's how we can win hearts and minds of the majority, the people who are not necessarily, left, right, libertarian. They are maybe not fully decided yet where they are in this landscape. We should keep this in mind. We have an interesting question from Emily Braun. She's our friend from Canada. She was at the conference LIWC in Buenos Aires last summer. Emily asks, what is your vision of the future of the United States? I think this is a short question, but very much to the point. We talk about Declaration of Independence of United States. So what's going to happen with the land of the free? At least the political side of the project called United States. Anyone would like to speculate a bit? Mary?
Yes, well, one of the good things about COVID is it woke a lot of people up in the United States, because people who did not get the vaccine were basically, a lot of them lost their jobs. That was part of the emergency that they put on us, and they meaning the government, pressured our social media platforms to take off anybody who talked about ivermectin, for example, to help control the virus or anything of that nature. So anyhow, because of all these not only paternalistic but quite aggressive things that were done during COVID, a lot of people woke up and saw, wait, our government is not what we thought it was. It can be very bad. It does some very bad things. And on account of that, there have been some changes. I mentioned some earlier that have been happening in our society. So I would like to see more of that, and I hope I will, without another pandemic to precipitate it. And I know that my colleague, Jim Lark, wants to speak, so I'm going to yield the floor.
Couple of quick comments. First of all, I'm old enough to remember that things in the United States in the past, with respect to many important issues, were much, much worse. When I started school, we actually had segregation. Whites and blacks did not go to the same schools. Certain types of affectional preferences were illegal. In fact, people could not marry. Miscegenation laws. Things have gotten much, much better with respect to a lot of things, and it's long and slow. And those of us who have libertarian disposition, we don't like the slow pace, but we need to recognize that things are in many ways moving in the right direction. Also, let us understand that we are on the verge of extraordinary leaps forward in terms of wealth. The ability of human beings to create wealth, despite the extraordinary degree of government regulation, depredation, it's amazing. And I think we are on the cusp. And I'm not someone who is would be in the realm of technological optimist, but I think we are on the verge of an extraordinary leap forward, where we are going to be able, in a truly liberal fashion, to provide much more wealth, material wealth, to people throughout the world. And I think that will lessen in some cases the demand for the overly large, overly expensive, overly intrusive state. Now, by the way, contrary to Ruwart, I have been wrong before. So take what I'm saying with a great big grain of salt.
Thank you, Jim. We have another question. Now it's from anonymous source. That's also fine. This is the question. Just as the United States declared its independence in 1776, freedom has always come hand in hand with responsibility. But that's not always an attractive idea to embrace. What role should we play in teaching people that being responsible and free is actually great?
Tell them to watch Spider-Man.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Lobo.
watch Spider-Man.
With great power comes great responsibility. Come on, guys, get with it.
Well, freedom and responsibility to me are the opposite sides of the same coin. A society of liberty must be a responsible society to be a good society. And those people upon whom great responsibility is placed should have great latitude in terms of making the decisions of their lives. So I think that they go hand in hand. I want to see a good society. Good societies are ones, I think, where we help our neighbors because I think it's the right thing to do, not because people are forced to do so. But you have to be willing to take responsibility for your actions, to help your friends, to help your family. I'd say the last 125 years in American history has been a flight from responsibility.
My thinking is, of course, similar. What I want to add is that hopefully, this growing revolution of contracting, so different method of doing work, basically, relationship between two parties, the employee and employer or worker, whatever we call it, the one where there are truly two parties, not a third one to dictate how things should be done. So in the old model, the more I would call it social democratic model, the state is very present. The state is dictating vacations. The state is dictating about healthcare, at least in Europe. The state is taking side of usually employees when it comes to disputes, and so on and so forth. It's labor code. I call it the fat that is put on the normal thing that is labor, the relationship between two parties. Now we are entering era where there are more and more contractors, so it's more equal relationship. It can be much more international, and at LI, that's how we do it. We have very international team, and then this labor code, all of these, structures created by socialists and social democrats and whoever, they don't apply. I mean, we have rules, obviously we do, and we have vacations even, and we may have salaries, but this is discussed without this, third party by the table. But coming back to responsibility, I think the responsibility is big issue here, because both the contractor and the entity that gives the work basically and pays for the work, they need to take larger responsibility, especially the contractor or employee. So I hope that the change of the revolution of the labor market will continue, will grow. I'm pretty sure it will, because it's people want that, and people don't need to be libertarians, or maybe don't realize they are, and they want more opportunities. This old notion that I search for a job and I need to look in my city for work. It's no more truth. If this is a remote work, and now larger and larger share of jobs are remote, the world can be your market. It doesn't need to be your city or your metropolitan area anymore. That's amazing. It's amazing for especially less privileged people who can finally find opportunities in the welfare part of the world. I'm very hopeful for this revolution, and we supported the Liberty International. We'll have a project actually in soon future, And I believe this is very much connected to the question of responsibility. Lobo, floor is yours.
I want to thank the questioner because, as Dr. Lark says, liberty, responsibility, inseparable parts of the same coin. So this is a core issue, and it's a problem that libertarians have run into. You know, people want free stuff. They don't want to be. They fear that responsibility. You run into resistance telling somebody, no, instead of working hard and getting ahead, you know, free stuff is the problem here. And so I think we need to sort of strike at the root here. Why do people fear this? Where does this come from? Why do they resist responsibility? And I think this could be a very huge conversation, but just thought experiment here. I think it's partly our education system dumbing people down. People are not taught that they're competent. They're not taught that they can be successful. They're taught the victimhood mentality. And a victim doesn't want responsibility. They feel weak. They don't feel that they can succeed. So if we can change the value structure in the education system, well, that would cure many things, but it would address this issue as well. But also, you know, you don't need to wait for society to revamp the education bureaucracy. We, as parents, can teach our children that, you know, yes, you are competent to live in this world. Yes, you can achieve things. And it's extraordinary how you do that with kids. And I can say this from personal experience. You have kids that they're not afraid to just go out and start a business. They don't think, oh, I need a government grant to start a business or something. They think, oh, well, what can I do? I have the skill that nobody else has, or I'm better than other people at that. So why don't I focus on that? So just putting that out there, I think this is a very serious issue. And it is something that we need to do better jobs as libertarians to address, but understand that there's a fear here and there's a reason for it. And that there are answers to help people so that, you know, really, do you want to have a government pension where you can sit on your sofa and eat fast food and play video games for the rest of your life? Is that the life you want to live? Or do you want to get out there and do something of significance and live a meaningful life? And I think that conversation can be very fruitful.
Thank you, Lobo. And I see Mary raised her hand.
Yes, I mean, another way of looking at responsibility, though, is that you're making decisions for yourself. You know, what kind of work you're going to do, who you're going to associate with, etc. And the opposite of taking responsibility and making decisions for yourself is that somebody else makes those decisions for you. And I think if people thought about responsibility that way, they'd go, yeah, I don't want somebody else making the decisions. Although I will say I have met a person who said, yeah, I don't want to make decisions because if I make the wrong one, then I'll feel terrible. Well, again, this is something, and Lobo kind of referred to this, that, you know, if we run into somebody like that, I think we need to help them out a little bit and understand that the problem is you might dislike the person who made the decision for you, be it government or a government bureaucrat. You might dislike them even more than you would dislike yourself for making the wrong decision, because they have no liability about it. They don't take responsibility for the decisions that they impose on you. So anyhow, I think that's one way to talk about that.
Right. And I would add, Jacek, if you allow me, to Lobo's point, if you want to be on the couch, right, and playing video games, well, you gotta come up with the money to be able to sustain that life, right? So if you want to do that, if that's your thing, go ahead, but you gotta be responsible enough to have your savings or whatever it is that your decisions have made that allow you to do that.
Exactly. Because we are open for different lifestyles. The world should be laboratory of lifestyles. But no single group should expect other group or individuals to pay for it just because they are tired or just because they feel they are entitled, right? Okay, it's 7:29 p.m. my clock. I'm in Poland. I know it's 1:39 p.m. Central Time. and we should finish. I know there were a few more questions. We cannot take all of them, but we promise there will be more webinars. Every few months we organize them, so please follow Liberty International. If you go to our website, liberty-intl.org, you can join our newsletter. You will be up to date with everything we do, not only webinars. That's just a small part. We do multiple projects in research, in trainings, Project Arizona, Phoenix from the Ashes, with the World Conference I mentioned. We make animation. We produce, a series named Jonathan Gullible Adventures, this animated series, and we have a pipeline full of projects. So please stay in touch with us. If you have ability, please consider donation. That's how we make it happen. We don't take any penny from a taxpayer, not only U.S. taxpayer, but any taxpayer in the world, because we are not hypocrites. We believe truly in mutual beneficial exchanges. We don't believe in force, right? So I welcome and I encourage, if you can do it, if you like what we do and you would like to invest even $5, 10, 20, maybe you can do 1,000, that would be great. Please consider donating to Liberty International. If you are based, if you are citizen or resident of United States, this donation is tax deductible because we have 501c3 status. And yeah, let's, as my friend José Cordeiro says, live long and prosper. I want to thank all the debaters, the speakers, Mary Ruwart, José Cordeiro, James Lark, Lobo Tiggre, Antonio Saravia. I want to thank Alba Orellana, head of outreach at Liberty International, to make it possible, basically, because Alba, she was responsible for all, not only technical aspects, but also marketing and putting this Zoom technology together, everything, basically. So thank you, Alba, and the rest of LIT, because everybody to some degree contributed. Well, that's all from me. Do you want to add anything at the end?
Live long
Happy
and
birthday,
prosper.
America.
Long live America, yes.
I said happy birthday. A
Happy
good
birthday,
start,
America.
250 years.
Happy birthday, America. Live long and prosper. Viva la libertad, carajo, perhaps. And and thank you. And thank you. All the best. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.